Hello everyone, welcome to Houseplant Tips and Tricks. My name is Nick and today I'm going to show you how to make a full pot of pothos out of just one vine. This series is sponsored by repotme.com. Get all of your indoor gardening supplies delivered to your door from one place. Repotme.com has practically anything you need for your orchids, succulents, and houseplants, including handmade potting mixes, planters, fertilizers, and much more. Pothos are quintessential houseplants. I truly believe that everybody should grow a pothos in their home, whether or not they consider themselves to be an indoor gardener. They are one of the easiest plants to grow, in my opinion, and one of the fastest growing houseplants. One pothos can change a space in a very short amount of time. They, in the growing season, can grow up to a foot a month, and you will just get legs for days on these vines, which is why I want to share with you how to make a new plant out of just one vine. And I will admit, I was a pothos naysayer for the first couple of years that I was growing houseplants. I would see them everywhere, at every single houseplant store, and for some reason I deemed them just too common because of that, and maybe perhaps a little boring, which is 100% false. Look at these leaves, they're gorgeous. So if you do not grow a pothos in your home, or if you know somebody who grows a pothos in your home, I highly recommend either taking a cutting of your plant to share with one of those friends, or getting a cutting from one of your friends that might have a pothos plant to try growing one in your home, because they are truly a joy to grow, and they are ridiculous easy to propagate. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. Not only just propagating your pothos, but how you can turn just one vine into a really great starter plant to already get going with. So what are you going to need for today's project? Of course, you're going to need a pothos. This is going to be our mother plant here today. And you are going to need some snippers or a scalpel. I'm using the Precision Snips by repotme.com today. And you are also going to need some type of medium to put your pothos plant in. And I will get there. I'm going to be doing a couple different examples today because there's a lot of vines on these plants. So let's make a couple. The more the merrier, you know what I mean? So to get started, I'm just gonna share with you a little bit about the anatomy of the pothos. Some of you might already be familiar, but you're going to find at every part of the main stem of the plant, where the leaf connects to the main stem, you're going to find what is called a node. A node is where this plant is not only going to root, but put off new growth. So it is essential that we have nodes on our plant, which we are going to, because we are going to be taking a cutting of a whole vine, but this is the most important part to be involved in propagating the houseplants. You can see right here, this is a actual root that's forming. Perhaps in the greenhouse it was very humid and this was starting to just produce a little root off of its little root nublet, or whatever it's called, that it has on the stem here. So this is already a pretty good start right here, and you're gonna find this on pretty much all the pothos that you have in your home, if not just an even smaller nub, but it more than likely is going to have more of a root nub that you're going to find on practically any other houseplant that you have in your home. So to get started, let's just take this one vine here. I have this one vine on the side here, and we're going to do a couple more. We're going to go pretty far back into the pot because we want a decent amount of plant on here. And in between two of those nodes where there is no action going on, just the main stem just working its way along, we're going to cut in between that area. So you can see right here now, I have this beautiful pothos vine right here. You can see at the base of the plant, I've cut it in between two nodes so that I wasn't damaging any spot on this plant that perhaps could be rooting up and producing new growth. And fortunately for us, pothos are a little bit more flexible than, oh, hello, Muffin. Coming in to say hello, a little off camera. Come on in, babe. Hey, Sweet Pete, are you excited about today's project? So fortunately, compared to many other houseplants that are available on the market, pothos stems are very flexible. There is, of course, a point to that flexibility. It can snap and break, which is not a big deal because this plant is easy to grow from just one single node, but that takes a lot more time to grow a plant. The point of taking this one long vine here and turning it into one plant is not only is there already new growth going on in this plant, the plant will look more full if we are bending this over to be in the illusion of a full plant. And not only that, if all of the nodes are in contact with a medium, whether it's soil, water, what have it, there is a better chance that each of these nodes could perhaps put off new growth down the line. So let's start off with just the most basic way to grow houseplants, and that is water. So I have a jar of water right here, and I'm simply just going to curl this plant around. I'm going to, Muffin is playing with something. We are going to just kind of curl this plant around and get the main part of the stem, particularly the bottom of the stem, submerged in the water. Now, we don't want any of the leaves to be submerged. We just want the stem where the roots are. And then we can leave a little bit coming out the top here. And this is really just a great way to get started with propagating houseplants. This will root up all along each of these nodes that are submerged in the water. Like I said, we want to make sure that none of the leaves are submerged in the water and as little of the petiole. The petiole is the stem that connects the leaf to the main stem. Submerged in the water, as that's when it could incite some rot. But as long as we just have the main stem there and the nodes, they will react to that water. They will begin to root up. It'll probably take about a week or two to see some root action on here. It depends on the time of the year. If you're doing this in the winter time, it can take upwards of like a month sometimes to get roots, as it's just not the active growing season. But if you're doing this during the growing season, I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see some roots appearing in just a matter of days. But growing things in water, like I said, is a great way to get started because not only is it just kind of a set and forget way to propagate your houseplants, but you also get to watch visibly the root growth happen without having to check on anything. But this is, like I said, the most basic way. This isn't going to just give you a full plant to start out with. This will have you root a plant that you can plant up and then have a full pothos. But let's get a little bit more ahead of ourselves. So here I have a jar full of LECA, which is a clay pebble kind of medium. It is available on repotme.com, and I will have a link below as to where you can get it from them. And also, if you purchase anything from the links down below or buy anything through the links, I do get a small kickback, so thank you so much. But let's go ahead and take another cutting of our pothos. We have this other vine right here that is just beckoning to us. So once again, let's work our way back in the soil, in between two nodes, clean cut with our precision snips. And we have this vine right here. And once again, I'm just going to take this and kind of curl it into either like a U or as much of an enclosed circle as I can. And starting at the base, I'm going to submerge this inside the jar full of LECA. Now, I should have mentioned when I was first doing this, but I filled my jar up with dry LECA. You can use any glass container, or any container really, but I filled up my jar with LECA probably about 2/3 of the way. Then I filled up my jar with water even higher than that. So you can see I filled this up almost all the way with water. And what that does is it allows the LECA pebbles to rise up. And instead of having to jam our pothos down into just like literal balls of clay, the water is playing to our advantage. So we can push down through it, the pebbles will move. And then now I'm gonna go over to the sink. I'm gonna be off camera for a second. And I'm gonna pour out, I'd say about half of the water that I have in the jar here. Give my jar a little spank just to make sure all the LECA is down where it needs to be. And now you can see that now that the water is below the LECA level, which you can even have the water a little bit lower, as long as there is water inside the container, the LECA will absorb it and stay moist up to the top. In fact, you're probably better off having even less water than this. I would probably keep roughly about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water inside your container or vessel with LECA. And now you can probably kind of see, I'm sure the light is reflecting, but the plant is inside, submerged in our medium that we have here. And this is going to root up. And the difference between growing this plant here in just water versus having it inside the clay pebbles is that these roots will be a little bit more acclimated to growing inside soil. While these are just straight up water roots, these, if they're not completely submerged in the water, will form roots that will transfer well over to soil, which I'm assuming 9 times out of 10, unless you're just trying to grow your pothos indefinitely in water, which is no problem at all. But if you're trying to make a full pot of pothos, I'm assuming you're going to want to pot it in soil. So what you can do with both of these is let them root up. Like I said, it could take anywhere from a week, it could take anywhere to a month. I would wait until you have pretty visible roots that are at least 1 inch long minimum before you go ahead and pot this up. You'll pretty clearly see them in the water. In the LECA, you will see them start to work their way to the edge of the jar, and you'll see the roots work their way around the perimeter of the glass, which is pretty neat to watch as well, but also a great visual way to know when it's time to repot your plant. But you can see pretty clearly how this one in particular, I think I got a couple more leaves on this one. Once this gets potted up in like a 4-inch pot, this will visibly look like a full 4-inch pot of pothos, even though it is just one pot. And to give you that effect even more, let's do one more. And we're gonna do this one, we're gonna cut all of these steps right here. We're gonna go straight for the jugular. So we are going to take, we have a plastic nursery planter here. I'm gonna get some just standard potting soil. Today I'm using the Pothos Imperial potting mix by repotme.com, as it's perfectly suited for pothos plants. We're gonna fill up our pot as high as we would. Give it a little tap to make sure it's all good to go. Reseal our soil so it stays fresh. And we are going to take one more cutting of our pothos. It looks like we have a real nice vine just calling out to us right here. And I'm gonna go back between two nodes, give a clean cut, and now we have this pothos vine right here that is ready to turn into a full plant. With this method, there's going to be just a little bit more involved than just putting it aside and waiting. But the point of doing this is that you get to skip these two steps, or one of these steps right here of having to wait for your houseplant to root up. And instead, just put it right inside the potting material that you're gonna grow it in, and just, like I said, just skip all of the nonsense there, which I still think these are fabulous ways to propagate houseplants. But if you're just going for efficiency, I think this might be the way to do it. We're gonna do a little of doctoring to this houseplant. I'm gonna take some rooting hormone right here just to encourage this to root up a little bit more, which you can see pretty clearly. These roots are getting already pretty adventurous. But since this came from a greenhouse where I'm sure the humidity was a lot higher, we're just going to try to contribute to the growth and health of this houseplant by just dipping the nodes in a little bit of rooting hormone. And then I'm just gonna take our pothos, we're going to curl it up in a circle once again, and we're gonna place it in the soil. You can see pretty clearly now how this does look like a full pot of pothos. And obviously, if I was just to let go of this right now, it would fly out. This isn't gonna work like this. So I'm gonna take a little metal plant prong. I don't know what these are called. I find these on like practically every houseplant I buy. If it's in a hanging basket, I just pull them out and save them. And I'm gonna just use it to hold the plant in place down in the soil. And if you don't have those, which I'm assuming many people just don't have those on hand, you can also just take a paper clip, just a standard paper clip, and unfold it and just bend it into the same shape like I have here, and use it to also keep the plant in place. It works exactly the same. And now this is securely in here. Of course, the leaves are all in their own angle as they were, but once this plant starts to acclimate to its surroundings, as it begins to root and all of those things, it will be upright and look like just a standard pot of pothos. But to begin this process, we're gonna just go ahead and give this a quick watering. And my plant's looking good, but you just wanna double check after you water it that you have plenty of the nodes in contact, if not submerged inside the soil, because of course that's how they're going to root. They need to be in contact with the medium in order to root. And we're going to encourage this to grow by putting it inside. You can put it inside a greenhouse little container if you have it, like an aquarium, anything that's gonna keep the humidity up. But just because I'm always in a pinch, I always keep gallon Ziploc bags around, and I will just carefully get this whole thing inside here. And I'm gonna zip it up, not all the way, because I still want this to be able to vent a little bit. But this is just going to recreate the conditions that this would be receiving inside the greenhouse. This is practically how they propagate such full plants of pothos and other trailing plants inside the greenhouse. In fact, you can do this with not just pothos, you can do this with many trailing philodendrons, syndapsis. I'm sure there's plenty other house plants that you can do this with, but those are the ones that are just coming to mind at the moment. But I don't want to just leave it off here. I want to show you in a Food Network style fashion what the process of doing this is going to look like, because I don't want to just leave you off with throwing a plant inside soil, inside a plastic bag, and saying, here you go. So I started this one about a week and a half ago. So you can see it's not rooted up yet. I just took this out of the plastic bag. It was inside a plastic bag, and that's where I'm growing it. But this is still rooting up, and you can see it is wilted, and it's going to perk back up as it roots. Of course, it's just getting started rooting because I only had this one going for about a week and a half, like I said, but in probably another week or two, this thing will perk back up as it begins to root, and then I will have a nice full pot of jade pothos, as you can see right here. And to show you the finished product, of course I can't leave you without that, this is a neon pothos. that I did the same thing with. Of course, I wouldn't call this a full plant. This was a rescue mission from another pothos that I had, where I just took the leftover piece that was available, laid it on top of the soil. I think I did it right into this terracotta planter here too, so this was a really just kind of set and forget project. And then now it's been a couple of months and this houseplant is perked back up completely. You're gonna get much fuller specimens of the ones that I have here, but this is just the finished product that I wanna show you that you absolutely can turn just one vine into a new plant. Whether you're gonna share these with your friends or whether it's just you salvaging a plant that you might have on the fritz, this is an excellent project. I think it's a great way to start learning how to propagate your houseplants, and quite frankly, will probably inspire you to start propagating all of your houseplants, because it's a slippery slope. Once you start, you can't stop. So I think that's it for today's project, how to turn one vine of pothos into one full houseplant. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for repotme.com for sponsoring this series. As I mentioned, I will leave all of the products that I talked about in today's video in the description below, and if you click on any of those links and purchase anything, I do get a small kickback, so thanks so much. But thank you again for joining. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at phillyfoliage, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.